I want to start with an exercise because we're late in the day. I'm sure you're getting tired. Everybody just raise both your hands. And I'm going to ask a question. If the answer is yes, you can lower your hands. When you were 10 years old, you told everybody that you knew you wanted to be in professional services. How about when you were 20 years old? 25? All right. Everybody can put their hands down. So you all, at least from what I can see with the lights, are like me. You're the accidental professional services leader, right? It's the story. I took a job that said lead a team of 8 consultants, and I took it not because it was my dream job. It was because I had been at Accenture, had a young family, was tired of traveling, tired of not seeing my kids, and I'm like, team of 8, I'll be home for dinner. As I got to the company, they launched a new software product, and my boss said, hey, build an implementation team too, and new job. I said, okay. And the thing took off, and we started scaling, and we started burning the midnight oil, and everything was hair on fire. And I was either going to die or we're going to figure out how we do this effectively, operationally, scalably, efficiently. And so the advice I'm going to share is, things that I did, I tried, because I did not enjoy getting escalation calls at 5 p.m. on a Friday from a sales director who was upset about the estimate that he got from one of our folks, right? And it was going to be too big, and they were never going to close the deal, and I'd be at the office till 8 trying to get that resolved. I think it's also because I'm the firstborn of like 25 cousins, and I always told everyone else what to do, and I got sick and tired of sales telling me what to do and telling me I was doing things wrong. And so I tried to just figure out what to do. And so it's really about driving an agenda, getting ahead of the curve, being proactive, not reactive. And that's a theme that we'll get to here. Just quick background, I run a consulting firm that helps professional services groups optimize performance and profitability. So you guys know the problems that people have and what we do. As mentioned, I worked at Accenture for 12 years. That's where I learned the ropes. I took this job and grew it to 1,600. And since that time, I've advised other companies on how to scale resource management processes that one credits with driving $100 million of growth, helping another build a package service offering portfolio that helped them grow. So enough of the advertisement. Want to see if this sounds familiar to you all, right? You're in the middle of a sales process, and prospective customer says, this sounds great. Let's get started. How much is it going to cost? What's it going to take to get done? And you respond with, well, it depends, right? Air gets sucked out of the room. Prospective client, does a palm plant, and says, hey, you've done this a gazillion times before. You've told me you guys are the experts in implementing your software. You can't tell me what it costs to do it, right? Does this sound familiar to everybody? Anybody? And I've been guilty of this as well, right? My training was Accenture. I still vividly remember doing the math in my head. 31 years ago this summer, being in a training class, we were all pretty junior, young, and it was like, you're doing a role play with a pretend client, and the client's like, hey, great, can you do this for $5 million, right? And I said, sure, right? And so did everyone that went in line behind me. And then they debrief us, and they're like, don't ever do that again, right? You'll get fired if you commit to scoping and pricing. That literally is seared into my brain from 30 plus years ago. As I went to Convergys and we were building this group, same thing. There were so many configurations to the software that we had, so many customization options. We told everybody, don't commit on scope, right? We have to do a detailed scoping study, right? Take your time, make this work. And for a decade of the past 15 years, consulting to PS orgs, that's been my advice, right? Because it depends. The challenge is today's different than yesterday. Right? Solutions are not as necessarily as big and customizable and configurable as they used to be. I'd argue this advice holds even if you do work at a large ERP, large customizable solution. With repeatable solutions, we ought to have repeatable delivery and implementation, right? We ought to be able to say, this is a 4-week, $75 million implementation, right? Whatever the numbers are, it ought to be able to roll right off of our tongue. And there's a variety of reasons for it, right? Customers need to get budgeting approval quickly, right? They don't have time or patience for long scoping cycles. They don't want to pay for a long scoping cycle. And they're expecting all of us, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys refer to your teams as professional services, people, implementers, consultants. I've seen it across the board, but they're expecting us to show up as consultants and tell them what it's going to take, how long it's going to take, what they need to do, and what we're going to do for them, right? They're expecting us to be the experts, the pros from Dover, that really help them get to where they want to get to quickly. So it depends, I think, is now a deal killer, right? I mean, one, it's always infuriated the sales team. It's why I got a million different phone calls from the sales force when I was leading the group. I've seen it in countless other organizations where the PS exec and the sales lead, head of sales, just they're at loggerheads, right? They're arguing, they're fighting, they're just frustrated with each other because they're speaking different languages. So when I talk about services as a product, there's 3 components to what I'm talking about. One, and we'll get into all 3 of these, define and package up what you do, what problem you solve. Is it an implementation offering? Is it an architecture offering? Is it a consultative offering? Just define it, right? Once you've got that defined, you can now more proactively tell the sales team where to take it. Here are the types of clients, customers where this is going to be a fit. Let's go get 5 meetings. Let's go get 7 meetings, right? Again, you're driving the agenda, not reacting to whatever sales is selling. And on the operational side, right, you can streamline your financial, operational, resource management processes. So what I mean by all this is, right, in terms of packaging it up, you've probably already got 85% of what I advocate you need somewhere on a hard drive, on a shared drive, in SharePoint, wherever, right? You just take a look at your historical work. What are the most common things we deliver, right? Let's just pick one, right? Maybe you look at what trends are evolving, what's going on with the product roadmap. Is there something new that we're going to be doing that we ought to just, hey, we know the sales team is going to want to sell this new product or this new component. Let's predefine some offerings there. And what you're going to want to build are 4 simple things, right? When I say simple in air quotes. What's your pitch deck, right? What problem does this solve? And you want to put it in terms that the sales force is going to understand, that then they can explain to the customer, this is the problem this solves. Here's what we do, right? If, presuming you've done this before, you'll have case studies that you can package up in there. And then the hard part, right, or at least the hard part for me initially, was pre-building the statement of work, right? I mean, again, my Accenture training was, okay, the client said yes, you went back to the office at 4:30, stayed there till 2 in the morning, scoured every drive in the office, found things, copy, pasted, and then wrote something new, right? And you ended up with a 50-page, 100-page statement of work. Predefine these things, right? If we know this is the scope, these are the deliverables, we can put a resource plan together, we can put pricing on there, right? And then we can go gather all the artifacts that we've got that are going to be useful on the project, right? We can define the requirements definition templates for this type of project. We can define the deliverable templates for this type of project. And you're just, all that work that teams do when they storm and norm at the start of a project, I'm just advocating you do in advance once. Because once it's built, everybody can then use it. Just, on ad infinitum. Second thing then is, once you've got this defined, you can create much clearer roles and responsibilities on who's